All right, hello and welcome to the fall meeting of the Medical Faculty Senate. My name is Dave Eisenberg and I'm this year's chair of the Medical Faculty Senate Steering Committee. Thank you all for coming in person, and also thank you to those who are watching on live stream. Not sure how many of you are out there, but this is the second time we're trying this out in order to try to reach as many people as possible who can't physically be here. As you can see, we have a busy agenda for this hour, and before I turn it over to the Dean, I wanted to just say a few words about what our committee does. The steering committee members are actually elected by the faculty, and we encompass a very diverse group of researchers, educators, and clinicians from many different departments. We meet almost monthly to discuss issues that are really important to the medical school community. Over the last couple of years, we've discussed topics including faculty diversity, the definition and the quantification of teaching, and faculty and student wellness. This current year, we're going to be focusing on opiate reduction efforts, issues of sexual violence, and the health system's approach to the uncertainty surrounding healthcare legislation, among obviously many other topics. I'd like to encourage you to send any other issues that you feel are important to the community for us to discuss. So please feel free to email myself or any of the other members listed here that are part of our committee, and we'll try our best to address your concern. In addition to the steering committee, there's also the Committee of Academic Freedom and Responsibility, and those members are listed here and are also available to be contacted. So without further ado, please welcome Dean Jamieson, whose slides I hope are loaded up here, and we'll take it from there. Are these it here? Great. Excellent.
David, thanks so much. We really appreciate your leadership in this important role, and everyone who's part of the Medical Faculty Senate. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here. I've just come back from the AAMC fall meeting along with Dr. Morrison and a number of other attendees, and just listening to the topics that you're thinking about for the coming year, very much on the agenda of every academic medical center around the United States. And I'm happy to say that on balance, we're at least as engaged, if not out in front of where many people are in trying to both analyze and come up with solution sets for many of these important challenges. Today you're going to hear from Karen Lerman an update about our strategic planning effort. And I just want to put this into context and give you a few updates before we start that. So the context is that we've had a series of strategic plans at the school that many of you have participated in the past. As I came on, Arthur Rubenstein was completing an important strategic plan. It's led to a number of our milestone efforts in translational research, professionalism. You see the Smilo building as the culmination of that, the launch of the Institute for Translational Medicine and Therapeutics, among others. And then in 2011, we had a very robust strategic planning effort that came to a close this past year. I think that roadmap accounts for a lot of our success because it defined very clear, actionable areas of institutional priority and focus. And as we've reflected on the last year, the accomplishments in diversity and inclusion, including creating a new office that Eve Higginbotham directs, our ability to raise philanthropy to support many of our efforts, the focus on innovation and commercialization with the launch of PCI at the university, the launch of the Institute for Biomedical Informatics. I mean, you've all heard about these things, but I mention them to remind you that the strategic plan that you're going to have an update about really is a critically important framework. It's not going to encompass everything that we will do, and things will come up in the course of the year that we'll always adapt to. But it is an important roadmap that Karen Lerman and I spend a lot of time going through who's in charge of this, where's the implementation plan, what are the milestones, and what do we need to do to get it back on track. So before we get into that, and I hope that you will weigh in with comments and questions, just a few additional updates. Last month, the National Academy notified us that we have 5 new elected members. This used to be the Institute of Medicine. It's been renamed the National Academy of Medicine to align with the National Academy of Sciences. And these accomplished faculty members really reflect in many ways the breadth of expertise and activity at the Perelman School. Lou Chodosh in cancer biology, he's the chair of this department. I think many of you know that he does important work on why breast cancer cells can go dormant and hibernate in the bone marrow or other reservoirs only to come back some decades later. Are there ways to identify the characteristics of those cells, to detect them earlier? He set up clinical trials to investigate new therapies. So just an example of the kind of people that are elected. One of our recent chairs, Maria Oquendo in the Department of Psychiatry. Maria came to us from Columbia. She started in January, relieving Karen Lerman of her interim role of chair of psychiatry. She brings expertise in a variety of areas, but among them is depression and suicide risk, and she's got a lot of international interest in that space. We recently had a conference on campus called Campaign for Community. It was attended by undergraduate students, staff, and faculty. Maria was one of the panelists who participated, along with the provost and the president in that panel, bringing her content, expertise, and background to an important issue that affects all of society, and our college campus is not excluded from that. Mike Parmachek in the Department of Medicine, chair of the Department of Medicine with a background in cardiovascular research. Mike has done a lot of very basic work in cardiovascular disease, but he's also an accomplished clinical cardiologist and now an accomplished leader and administrator, directing our largest department, perhaps our most complex, with about 15 different divisions, and he's really proven to be a very effective member of our senior leadership team. And Flora Winston at CHOP in the Department of Pediatrics, with a long history of interest in injury risk and how do we reduce the risk of injury in a variety of different settings. She raised her hand and volunteered to participate very actively in our strategic planning process, and you'll hear a little bit about this from Dr. Lerman as she talks about our renewed efforts in the public health space to come up with new approaches to deal with challenges that face our public health community at large. And last in the School of Medicine is Christos Koutafaris in OBGYN, reproductive medicine. He's currently the president of ASRM. This is the American Society for Reproductive Medicine. He's very involved in IVF, which I think as you reflect on the last few decades is one of the many examples of miracles in modern medicine that represent a transformative methodology that wasn't available to us a half of a century ago. Again, very strong leadership skills as well as academic accomplishments. And there were other members elected from Penn, as has been the case recently. Terry Richmond in the nursing school, and we had someone in law. Right, Dorothy Roberts, one of the Pick professors in law, engaged with the medical school. We have a lot of celebrations here. Many of them are held up in this space in the Jordan Medical Education Center, others in the Smilo Center and throughout campus, but I'll mention just a couple of them. The Leonard Davis Institute celebrated its 50th anniversary. We had hundreds of the most accomplished people in healthcare policy and management at this event, and the main message that they had was, we need to do this again, and don't wait 50 years, because this was such an important way for us to network, get ideas on the table, and it's just a reminder that between particularly the Wharton School and the medical school, but essentially every other school at the university participates in LDI. This is a flagship institute that leverages the remarkable skills that we have of having all of these schools on one campus at the University of Pennsylvania. And it's a way for us to convene academics in a way that's rarely accomplished outside of professional organizations. And the Institute for Translational Medicine and Therapeutics, ITMAT, had its annual symposium in the Smilo Center, an international group of speakers and participants. Again, an idea that emerged out of Penn very early. It was created almost 15 years ago. Garrett Fitzgerald is the leader. Penn is internationally recognized as being on the cutting edge of translational medicine. Now moving from the transition from bench into mouse models to first in human studies and clinical trials. So it's wonderful to see the progress of that group. I just want to mention that as we go into this part of the year, we track very carefully institutional goals and metrics, either within the strategic plan or outside of it. Our financial performance is strong both in the health system and at the school, so we continue to make important investments in key elements in the plan. You can't help but see that the hospital is being constructed behind us as we speak. The steel is going up. The crane is moving these gigantic concrete platforms over into the parking deck like Legos, and we'll blink, it'll be 2021, and that facility will be opened with 500 new patient rooms and 50 interventional rooms. So good financial performance, which stands out again around the country. It's important to support the rest of our missions. We're also tracking research funding, high impact papers, and a variety of other metrics, and all the signs are quite positive, and we'll continue to report out on those. So Karen, I'm going to turn it over to you. We've presented this planning process as it's been unfolding over the last couple of years, and this will be an update as it's really beginning to take shape.
Thanks, Larry. Well, under your leadership, the momentum that we have has really been exceptional. I've been here for over 16 years now, and I find it so inspiring that this is a place where our diverse faculty come together with curiosity in a super collaborative spirit to transform all of our mission areas. And you'll hear about some of those examples during this talk. Larry talked about the previous strategic planning effort, so this Shaping the Future of Medicine 2.0 builds upon that momentum and all of the achievements in the last 5 years. And it's focused around 4 areas, as you can see around this circle: providing patient-centric care of the future, pioneering new discoveries, fostering inclusion, engagement, and professional development, and promoting lifelong learning. So this plan is designed to both strengthen and accelerate our progress, focusing on these areas. So those of you who have been following this journey may have seen this figure before. I just want to highlight a couple of things, which is we started in the fall reviewing our achievements from the last plan, and it was really remarkable to see the vast number of goals that we have actually executed on with impacts that are measurable. We went on to identify areas that would benefit from a sharper focus, and we referred to these as the deep dives, and we set up several deep dive work groups as part of this process, and you'll hear about some of those today. But of course, there's also planning and strategy that goes on every single day here at Penn Medicine. So within the strategic plan, we were able to capture those parallel lines of planning efforts to create a coherent document for the plan, which, by the way, was sent around to all faculty, staff, and trainees. And so I encourage you to take a look at that. As Larry mentioned, we're moving into the implementation phase, and what I invite you to do is, as you hear some of these examples and highlights of the strategic plan, think about areas in which you would like to engage. If there are areas that you would like to champion, are there faculty within your departments or your centers and institutes who want to come forward? And I invite any of you to contact me or any member of the leadership team to identify your interest, and we would love to work with you and continue to engage as we move through this process. So the opening of PCAM in 2008 was an inflection point in our approach to patient-centered care. And now we have a patients-first approach that's instilled throughout Penn Medicine. We have a number of strategic priorities in this area that are propelling us ahead, and I will just highlight a few of those. Starting with the new pavilion, through the heroic efforts and leadership of Kevin Mahoney and many others, the new pavilion, as Larry said, is scheduled to open in 2021. And it will take its place as really among the most ambitious projects in the history of the city of Philadelphia. As you can see here, we're talking about a 1.5 million square foot facility with over 500 private rooms. What is really cool about this is that it's using the most modern design concepts and technology that will create an exceptional patient experience, such as flexibility in terms of the patient rooms that are more family friendly, and providing a patient-friendly environment in which we can deliver the most advanced care and team-based care. We'll also be working with the Center for Healthcare Innovation and others around campus so that within this setting we're not only driving discovery through the data that are collected, but bringing experimental innovation into healthcare delivery. And one of the things that really appeals to me is that what went into the design of this facility is a model to reduce the carbon footprint by 50%. So it's very environmentally friendly initiative as well. At the same time, as we build things locally, we are expanding at an extraordinary rate so that we can provide access to Penn Medicine's exceptional care in a broad range. Under Ralph Muller's leadership, the health system has expanded our geographic presence from Lancaster in the south and the west, soon to Princeton in the north, and to enhance access to high-quality coordinated care, Peter Quinn, Beth Johnston, and the clinical chairs and many others are working together on a new initiative called the Penn Medicine Medical Group that will both leverage technology, the fact that there is a single electronic health record, and increase the coordination of care as patients move through different systems, and ensuring that we're providing the highest impact care within improvements that are measurable in terms of patient outcomes. And the high value care concept comes into this space. We had another deep dive work group that was led by Justin Beckelman and Dan Polsky, and they're working together with the Center for Healthcare Innovation to really look at new experimental models, test different models of team-based care, ways of aligning incentives that will actually be able to be tested throughout this system. So it's clinical care, but we are an AMC, so there is a scholarship and a training component that again is really vital and illustrates the intersection of our different mission areas. So big data. Big data is the foundation of everything that we do. And we are very fortunate to be in a setting where there's been tremendous progress. For example, the formation of the Institute for Biomedical Informatics under Jason Moore's leadership, the enterprise-wide deployment of EPIC, and the creation of these amazing data repositories such as PennOmics, PennChart, Penn Biobank, Penn AI, which stands for Artificial Intelligence. So we are not lacking for data. But what we really need to take this to the next level are ways to integrate these data streams so that we can bring together investigators who have innovative ideas, and using the example of precision diagnostics to come together and say, we want to integrate streams of data from radiologic images and genomics and immunologic assays to really do a better job of making more accurate diagnoses and choosing the right treatment for the right patient at the right time. Again, another component of this is artificial intelligence. I mean, this is the wave of the future. This is valuable potentially in patient diagnoses that can be made using machine learning types approaches, but also using AI for decision support. and bringing this into the electronic medical record. And there are applications of AI that we probably can't even imagine at this point, but this will be a major thrust and will require recruitment of individuals in these areas to help bring the richness and to help train the next generation of scholars in this area. So moving into the next pillar, again, just a few of the examples in here, but what I want to emphasize is that we have a long history of groundbreaking fundamental science that is really at the core of what we do. And it is often translated into clinical trials that have impacts on patients' lives. And I'd like to highlight just a few examples of goals that speak to this area. So we will continue to invest in the intellectual capital and infrastructure necessary to stay at the cutting edge of basic science research. Lou Soslowski led a deep dive work group focused on what are the innovative tools and methods that will help our scientists be successful and to stay ahead of the curve. So they came up with a concept that we should not only be early adopters of technology, I mean that's important, but we should be a place where technology is developed. And so to do that, we'll attract the best and brightest technology innovators. Now they may not fit into sort of the traditional tracks, and that's something that, we can be creative about, but, scientists whose focus are on technology development and doing this in collaboration with engineering and other schools. But also building the next generation of young innovators. They term this the Ben Franklin innovators, who could be senior postdocs or young faculty who want to move into this space. Clearly continue to invest in cutting-edge technologies through our research cores. And an example of this, how this type of a campus-wide approach in this area can be successful, is the new biomedical device initiative through Penn Health Tech, which is a collaboration with the School of Engineering, and that was honchoed by John Epstein and many others. And this was launched recently, and we're looking for good things ahead from this group. Now, of course, we were talking about groundbreaking fundamental science, but, ultimately, we hope that much of this will be translated into first-in-human trials and then ultimately for an impact on patient care. Now, we have exceptional examples of these, such as the work in cellular immunotherapies and gene therapies, but there's many other examples that take place every day here at Penn. But in order to be leaders in the nation, in conducting safe and effective clinical trials under the leadership of MMR, the creation of a model infrastructure for doing first-in-man human trials that have a really high set of elevated requirements for safety and efficacy. But also, we can have the most amazing infrastructure, but if we can't enroll patients into these trials, we're not going to get very far. So here we also have amazing scholars who understand behavioral economics and who apply behavioral economics principles. So thinking about how to apply these in terms of, nudges in the electronic medical records, but also working with patients, incentivizing participation in ways that are acceptable. But importantly is bringing more people into the community of clinical trialists by providing the type of training and support that would be beneficial. So we also have a rich tradition of renowned centers and institutes. We have this geographically located, co-located schools across our campus. And I think increasingly we see that we are leveraging across Penn's campus. And in this slide, it shows areas that are nodal areas such as T cells or epigenetics or microbiome that connect with other areas, so that when you start to flesh this out, and this was a graph that Larry created that really illustrates the intersections and what's going on the spaces between centers and institutes. But in red, you'll see it also illustrates all the areas in which we are collaborating with other schools in the university. And I think the more we do this, the more successful we will be. But as we look to the future, we want to go beyond Penn's campus and think about how do we partner more effectively with CHOP, with Wistar, with the VA, for example, recruiting talent together, or developing infrastructure that can be shared, particularly costly infrastructure where it may make sense to have shared infrastructure across institutions. And we also have an opportunity with the leaders of these entities who have a forward-looking approach to science to think about how should we be redesigning our educational programs with a focus on interdisciplinary programs and interprofessional education, which we will speak to in just a moment. Larry mentioned public health. Flora Winston from CHOP and Jennifer Pinto-Martin from the nursing school led a really strong effort to bring together public health scholars, scientists from across our campus, and there is a real appetite to try to create some model, some architecture that can help integrate the public health scholars and aggregate the impact of that work by bringing people together and creating a sense of a public health presence where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. To advance that, we are supporting signature initiatives that will move the needle on specific health problems in our local community, but also globally. So this area really does interface with the work led by Glenn Galton in global health, and trying to connect these two areas would have great value. And also, again, in each of these areas, a continued investment in training the next generation of innovators, and in this case, public health scientists, and thinking about how to refresh the educational components that leveraging the areas in which we really stand out at Penn Medicine in terms of our scholarship. Now, moving to the next pillar, fostering inclusion, engagement, and professional development. Obviously, our most important strategic investment is in our faculty and in our staff, who pioneer these discoveries and teach our trainees and care for our patients. So I'll highlight just a few examples in this area. Larry referred to the excellent work that's going on with Eve Higginbotham and her team in the Office of Inclusion and Diversity, and building upon that with Eve's group, we have goals of modeling our culture of innovation and inclusion at the highest levels of the organization. So what that may mean is unconscious bias training, being offered to individuals both at the level of leadership but across the organization as it pertains to how we identify pools of candidates for leadership searches, how we do reviews, how we review appointments and promotions, and so forth. So that with the goal of fostering a culturally competent workplace that is free of bias. There's also a drive and a real appetite to enhance academic scholarship in this area as well. So building a community of scholars who want to study what are the best ways to do this and the most effective strategies for advancing these goals. Larry mentioned Lisa Bellini and the amazing work that Lisa and Vicki, David Margolis, and others have done to really enhance our culture of wellness and resilience. You'll hear about new programs that involve self-assessment and tailored resources. This is building upon the Faculty Wellbeing Index, but also we'll be rolling out new programs that range from offering individual coaching to group workshops, advanced retraining for people who may want to be reinventing themselves at some stage of their careers, and tailoring that to the needs of faculty members at different ranks and different tracks. And we'll be looking to engage with the faculty for ideas on the best approaches to achieve this. But importantly, we do hear about faculty burnout. This is a national problem, and we need to pay attention to how do we reduce administrative burdens. For our clinicians, how do we help with promoting practice efficiency, whether it's physician extenders, whether it's ways to streamline the use of the electronic health records, for our researchers, reducing administrative and regulatory burdens, working closely with the School of Medicine IT group, and some of that has already started to take place. And this is actually a picture of yoga going on just right out here as one way, but there are many ways to approach this. Moving into promoting lifelong learning, education clearly remains our defining mission, And the high caliber of the programs developed under Gail Morrison's leadership are recognized by a consistent top 5 ranking. And here we'll be pursuing a number of strategies, reimagining education with a look at the curriculum and how we might refresh the curriculum, integrating educational programs across the continuum of lifelong learning, and reimagining graduate education in BGS. Kelly Jordan Shudo, John Epstein, and others have created a work group focusing in this area. MMR is actually leading a work group that's focused on UME and integration across the continuum. Fortunately, we will still be working with Gail because she'll be moving into a position as an executive director of a new innovation center for online medical education, and we look forward to hearing about more from that. And perhaps most importantly, enhancing trainee wellness and professional development and preparing them to succeed not only in medical school but as the next leaders in academic medicine. And so I'll just leave you with this, just to say that we really look forward, all of us, to working with you as we empower the talent that we have within our amazing integrated academic medical center to find new cures, to disseminate knowledge, and to improve healthcare for all people. So at that point, I'm happy to answer any questions. Oh, don't all raise your hands at once. What do people feel? So maybe I won't call on anybody, but let me throw out a couple of questions. So if you think about, pick one area, let's say the faculty wellness and resilience. What observations do people have, or what creative ideas do people have about programs that we should be elevating, focusing on, investing in? Anybody want to throw out some ideas? You want to talk about things we're doing, or things we could do more of? Vicki?
Well, as you know, this is an area that's near and dear to me, and I firmly believe in investing in the clinical infrastructure because I think we can help to reposition clinicians to be much more efficient and much more time. There is an interest in thinking about something in a very concrete way, and that is how do you get back 90 minutes to your day.
Right.
So I think by framing the question in that way, we give back one of the things that's been missing in this environment, the perceived to have been missing, is autonomy. And I think to give back to the problem, to the clinicians and researchers to say, come up with some strategies to do that, is back the problem in your hands. They have been feeling disenfranchised to do that. And also to come up with some very creative, we have some of the best minds here in many areas, and to come up with some creative ways that will impact institutionally wellness, efficiency, fun.
Right, right. And we heard, autonomy. What do people value? Autonomy, time, meaning, and learning. And so there's really this theme of continuous professional development to keep people engaged and to keep them growing in their roles and into new roles as well. So, yes?
One of the things that energizes me a little bit is trying to work outside of the silo that's kind of naturally created by my job, and kind of reaching out and talking to people of similar rank or similar age and seeing what they're doing and exchanging ideas. And I know that's really logistically challenging to organize, but I feel like, especially for junior faculty, that can really help just know what's going on, and also kind of get the creative juices flowing as well.
I think that's a great point. We focus a lot on identifying your senior mentors, but identifying those peer mentors and creating that sense of community. We've started under Lisa and Vicki and others dinners for incoming faculty to try to help integrating people coming in, and finding that these groups of people who randomly sign up to participate in these dinners start developing networks and interacting together. So I think those are great ideas.
I just want to
Yes.
to elaborate on that a little bit. I think that's an excellent suggestion. And it occurs to me that we've got some precedents where we've done this and we've got some learnings from that. So one example is for the underrepresented minority graduate medical education groups. They come together every year across all the different specialties to welcome the incoming class, and it's really striking to see faculty, residents and faculty from Children's Hospital, the VA, Penn, radiology, surgery, psychiatry, medicine, and it accomplishes in part what you're seeking, which is this peer group. And they've got some topics that they've taken on, some development projects of different types. John Epstein has done this with a group of physicians, scientists, and basic scientists of similar faculty rank. We're also beginning to break down the clinical silos as we roll out service lines of different types. And I think this is really important in terms of efficient and effective patient care. So primary care is the latest one. Preceding that was women's health, neuroscience, cardiovascular, and oncology. And it helps to connect up faculty who often work closely with one another. So it's an idea that we can plug in and follow up on.
Absolutely.
Welcome, Glenn.
Hi, Glenn. So you had a shout out.
Thinking about Vicki's comment of trying to get time back in your day, I think it can be challenging for departments that are interdependent on other departments. And so I'll give you an example. I'm an anesthesiologist, and I can become as efficient as I want, but if the surgeries are turning over, then I can't go home. So figuring out how to fit all the pieces together, especially for hospital-based specialties, would be useful because there's only so much we can do within our individual groups.
Go ahead.
We have departmental reviews on a 6-year rolling cycle. And it was interesting as we had both the anesthesia review, the surgery review, and some of the surgical subspecialties like orthopedics and otolaryngology. This topic came up across the board. And it's helped us to take a look at how to better coordinate that. And I just want to think about the 90 minutes that you get back. And Karen nicely outlined why it's important in terms of autonomy, continuous learning, and other things. But what we don't want is for that 90 minutes to just get sucked up into the next step, but to be able to use it for some of these other goals. And so I think this is truly a problem that hasn't been solved yet, either at Penn or around the country. I mean, no one has found it. And people, one new school has started that comes out of engineering and into medicine with the hypothesis that they can engineer a more efficient health system. And that's great if you use the efficiency to explore some of these other attributes, but it's not great if you just add on, one more surgical case or, because you got 90 minutes back. So I think what we want to do is get back to the mission part. Why did you go into medicine? Take that time to reflect on professional development, to spend more time with patients and their families or with your colleagues, and think about how you can reinvent yourself as your career evolves and you want to take on a new research direction or get more involved in medical education, whatever the topic happens to be.
And we have to make sure that we create the time to participate, for people to participate in these activities as well. All right.
We have one more item on the agenda. And let me just get those slides up. Okay, I'd like to introduce Dr. Peter Block, who's the president of ASIF and he's going to be talking to us about the Association of Senior Emeritus Faculty at the School of Medicine. So thank you. Just, you can press this button here to advance.
This one?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, the Association of Senior and Emeritus Professors at Penn, or in the medical school, covers the people that are close to retiring and trying to keep them within the Penn facility. And so we do multiple things. Let me first describe who is attending. Whoop. Yes, within the group, you could see multiple disciplines come together. And they come together on either with luncheons or with some social events. And it covers most of the departments in the medical school. Not all, but most of them. And it's very useful for the retired faculty to have a place at Penn. That's the whole point. Like what has been done this year? We've had 2 luncheons, one given by Scott Poting on Food in America, attracted about 60 to 70 people. I would say half of them were not retired faculty. They were students, they were researchers, and they liked the subject and they came to hear about it. So it's the senior faculty interacting with the other members of the university. The other lecture that we had, or the other luncheon that we had, which are always informal, was by Harvey Friedman talking about the UPenn partnership with Botswana, which also was attended by maybe 50 people, and I would say half of the crowd were not retired faculty at all. We don't only listen to lectures. We had a fall outing this year at a very interesting place, which was the Hagley Museum, which is where gunpowder was produced by DuPont for about a century. It was interesting. It's in a beautiful Brandywine area. With a little bit of water power, this was before electricity, they were able to make gunpowder that I guess this country invented. No, Chinese invented it, but they used it for parties, not for guns. Interesting, very interesting experience because they had the machinery, the tools, without any electricity. The little bit of water power that they got from the Brandywine drove these fairly sophisticated pieces of mechanical equipment. The total energy that they had, that I estimate, was about what you would get from a diesel engine driving a 20-ton truck. Now, I know little about their medical services. We do know that they had major casualties there. They had in their operation about 250 fatalities. I don't know how many doctors were on staff. Now, this has to be compared with the Manhattan Project, where the atomic bomb was produced, where Oppenheimer, who took great care on safety, had 1 fatality compared to 250 at that time. So today we are celebrating we have a reception for all of the retired. Oh, it didn't change. How do you go backwards? Sorry. Okay. Doesn't matter. It's okay. We're having a reception for the new retirees at the Sweeten Hall this afternoon. There'll be approximately 24 faculty members that are going to be honored at this reception. Thank you.
Okay, I think that covers everything that we were going to talk about. So if there are any issues or things that you want on the agenda for next time or for our committee to address, please, again, feel free to reach out to me. I think this is a really exciting time, so thank you very much for sharing the vision for the future. And thank you for making the time to come and either be here in person or listen on the internet. So take care.